Hey guys, what's going on? It is Nick from DesignsAcademy, and today I'm going to bring you guys a tutorial on kind of the starter shortcuts that you should learn if you're going to be using Photoshop, if you're learning Photoshop, if you're new to the program. These are all of the shortcuts that I found that I use on a daily basis and that I think are important to learn so you can kind of help your workflow while you're working in Photoshop. Um, all except for a few of these can be done just by clicking buttons on the screen, but it is a lot faster, especially once you get into larger projects and doing a lot more in a document. The shortcuts just helps everything move along a little bit quicker. I'm using Photoshop CC 2015, but it shouldn't be too much different if you're using an older version of Photoshop. I'm pretty sure the shortcuts have pretty much stayed the same since basically the beginning. But anyways, we're going to get into it now. The first shortcut that I'm going to be showing you guys is how to start a new document once you are in Photoshop. So if you open up Photoshop, your Photoshop's going to look something like this depending on what layout you have. It should be on Essentials. And to open up a new document, you're going to hold Control and press N. And that's going to bring up this new tab, Untitled, and we'll do a 1280 by 720 just for this tutorial. And this is where you're going to edit all of your size, resolution, color mode, all of that good stuff. Title your document, name this tutorial, click OK, and using that shortcut we can create a new document. This next one isn't really a shortcut, but to unlock your background layer when you start a new document, because the new version of Photoshop will do this, you just double click the locked background layer, we'll name it BG, and click OK, and now you can see that this is unlocked. So that's a quick little tip for you guys. Now if you want to make a new layer, rather than going down here and clicking this little button, you can just hold Control Shift N, and that'll make a new layer, and you can name it really quickly here. We'll name this layer first layer, color, mode, all of that stuff, opacity, click OK, and now we've made a new layer. Another thing about these shortcuts, guys, I'm not doing them in any particular order. This is just kind of what I wrote down on the list. So if the order sounds a little weird, I'm sorry, but this is just the random order that I wrote down in the list in. The next thing is your zoom. Now, this is going to work a little bit worse if you're on a laptop. Not a lot of people use Photoshop on a laptop, especially without a mouse. But just in case you are using a laptop, I'm not sure if this one will work. This is mainly for people that have a mouse. So if we have, let's say, something on our paper right here, or on our document right here, if I want to zoom in and out, rather than clicking on this tool and doing this and then having to unclick the tool, we can just hold Alt and then scroll, and if I scroll up it'll zoom in, and if I scroll back it'll zoom out. So that's a quick little way for you to zoom in and out of your piece. It'll also go to where your cursor is, so you can see right now my cursor is in the middle, so if I zoom in it'll zoom into my cursor. If for example I had I wanted to zoom in on where the smiley face is, I can hold Alt with my cursor over here and it will kind of snap the canvas up to that area. The next shortcut that I'm going to be showing you guys is one that I would say people use the most. I know I use it the most. A lot of people, obviously it's good to be able to get things the exact way you want them, so that is why people will use an undo or step backwards tool quite frequently. So in Photoshop CC 2015, it's called an undo state change, and basically all that is if I draw this kind of line right here and I do Control Z, it's gonna go one step backwards. Now if I Control Z again, it's gonna go a step forward. So basically Control Z, this first option under Edit, is basically one step backwards or forwards. So if I want to do this and I don't like it, I can do this. I don't like that, I can do this. But if I do two things, let's say I don't like either of those lines, that's not how you're going to want to undo it. The main shortcut that most people are going to use is Control Alt Z, which is a full step backwards. It's just a step backwards. So if I do 4 lines, rather than doing Control Z and only being able to undo that bottom line, I can do Control Alt Z, and I'll hold Control and Alt and just press Z every time, and that'll do a whole step backwards, and that'll allow me to go back as many layers as I can. I'm not sure if this version of Photoshop has a limit of how many times you can do that. I think it does, but it's usually a lot higher than basically any small mistakes that you're going to make. So the next kind of set of shortcuts I'm going to be showing you guys is all of the tools we have here on our left side. The first tool is the Move tool, and what you do to that is press V, and you'll see I have a little kind of four-pointed thing next to my cursor, and that's just going to let you move things around. So if I have a smiley face right here, press V to have my Move tool out, I can move it around, and that's just kind of helpful for getting things right where you want them. If you have, let's say more than one color, so let's say there's red behind the smiley face on a different layer, and I think that I want the black a little bit up. It is a very helpful tool to just hit V and I'll move the black a little bit up. Stuff like that, just quick little movement of individual layers. The next tool is the Marquee tool. This is a rectangle marquee. It's the second tool right here on your toolbar, and what we're going to do to bring that up is press M, and people basically know this as the selector tool. Nobody really calls it the Marquee tool, and what you would use this for is, let's say I have a red rectangle, and I want to cut the middle of it out. I would press M, select this, and while I'm on that layer I can press delete, and it'll delete the center of the rectangle. So just little things like that, or maybe if I had a little line coming off of it and I wanted to move that line, I could get my rectangle selector, select it, and then with my move tool selected I can individually move pieces off of a layer. So let's say I want it right there instead. That would be a easy way to do that. With the Marquee tool, you do need to make sure that you right click and click deselect, or you'll have the selected area still selected after, even if you delete or move it, because it just stays selected unless you change it. The next tool that I'm going to be showing you guys is the brush tool. Now a quick note about this whole side panel. I'm not going to show you guys all of these because honestly I don't think a lot of people ever use a lot of these. Like magnetic lasso tool, there's certain times when you use that, but a lot of these tools aren't something that you really need to know the shortcut for, because it's not going to be something that you're going to be, I'm not going to be using the lasso tool as much as I undo something. It's just not something that you really, after designing for a while, that you're going to need to know the shortcut for. You can just click on the icon on the left if you need to use it. But anyway, the next shortcut we're going to be using, and I've actually used this a lot of times already in this video, is for the brush tool. All you do is press B. Pretty straightforward, and that'll bring up your brush with whatever settings you have already set. But when you do select the brush, it's also going to pull up this hotbar up here so you can edit all of your settings, like your opacity, or your flow, or your pressure sensitivity if you're using a graphics tablet or anything like that. Pretty straightforward. B for brush. Now the next shortcut that kind of coincides with this one is the eraser. All you're going to press is E. Again, very straightforward. It's going to pull up the same kind of hotbar on the top, and it's going to give you basically the same options, just reverse. So use the eraser tool to do that. Next tool is the pen tool. Again, another straightforward shortcut. You're just going to press P, and with the pen tool, let's say I pen out this little area and I complete the loop. If I right click and click stroke path and click brush, it's going to use the same settings that my brush already had. So we can see, since I had my hardness all the way up, the brush is completely hard. If I were to change my settings with the brush tool, like let's say we'll change it to a softer brush, go back to my pen tool, right click, click stroke, then it's going to have a softer edge. But yeah, the pen tool is very useful for outlining things. The majority of people use the pen tool because you can get very accurate with it if you get good with it. Pen tool is something you just need to practice though, but it is pretty simple after you get it. The next shortcut, again, another straightforward one. Most of these tools on the side are very straightforward shortcuts. For the text tool, you're just going to press T, and we'll say hi. It's a nice font right here. This is Ranger. But if you press T, that's going to pull up your cursor to start a text box. So I'll just press that, and then whatever size and font you have selected will come up. So we have that. That's our text tool. Also, the text tool will always start a new layer, so you don't need to worry about that. It's always going to start you a brand new layer. The last shortcut that I'm going to be going over on this left side is something that I need to change this color for really quick, and that is a quick shortcut for changing in between your two color swatches right here. Now you'll notice that there's two buttons right here. One of them is reset to default, and that's D, and the other one is switch from foreground and background colors. Now this little button right here, if I press D, you'll notice I have red and black right now. If I press D, it's going to change back to the default black and white. So I don't want that for this part of the tutorial, but I'll change that to blue really quick. Now you notice, since I have black and blue, if I press this little button, it's going to change in between the colors, and the quick shortcut for that is X. You can see it really well on the top right. It's just going to change in between the two colors that I have. So let's say I'm mainly working with black and blue in a piece. If I make a line right here with the black, and then I want the blue, I hit X, and I've got the blue. Pretty straightforward, just quick little shortcuts to help you guys. The next shortcut I'm going to be doing is the Hue and Saturation shortcut. Now this is one that maybe not a lot of you know about. If you've been using Photoshop a little bit, you may know about most of these other ones that I've showed you. But this Hue and Saturation tool is a tool that I use constantly. It's very helpful for a variety of things. So let's say if I've got a little rectangle kind of thing right here. Now right now it's black. If I didn't want it to be black, let's say I wanted it to be a quick gray, rather than, you know, like making a clipping mask or something like that, I can click Control U, and it'll bring up my Hue and Saturation adjuster, is what I'm going to call it. I'm not sure the technical name for it, but you'll see Hue and Saturation right here. And we've got these kind of three color selectors and some presets, which I don't really mess with. I just use it myself down here. Now if I wanted to turn it into a lighter gray, I can use this down here on the very bottom, the lightness, and I can just turn it up, and it makes it very simple for me to turn it to a gray, or if it was already a gray, I can turn it black. Also, if I turn the lightness up and I turn the saturation up, I can change the color. That is a little bit trickier to get with just going straight from a black, but if you do colorize, sometimes it helps for you to get the exact color, because now I can just go along here and I can change color, and that is a lot easier than going through the hotbar and changing colors of a object or a shape. So it's helpful sometimes if you want to do a quick color change. The next one I'm going to be showing you is transform. So if we have a cube right here, and I'll rasterize it just to make sure it's an object. We've got our cube right here, and let's say I want to make it into like a tall rectangle. So I want the top and bottom to be smaller and the right and left to be longer. I'll do Control T, and that's going to bring up our free transform tool, and then I can just edit it right here. Very helpful tool. It's another one of those tools that if you're doing a lot of designing, you're going to be using it constantly. Control T is just kind of like a thing that once you learn it, you just do it constantly. If, you know, let's say I have two objects right here and I want this bottom one to touch it, I can do Control T, move it up here. CC's got these nice auto rulers, you guys will see, these pink lines, and those are very helpful, but the older versions of Photoshop don't have those. Let's say I wanted to touch it here and I wanted it to be the same width as it. I can just drag these corners, make sure everything's lined up, hit the check mark, and we're all lined up. So Control T, very useful free transform tool. Next one I'm going to be showing you is the duplicate tool. Now this is something I actually just used a second ago. If I have a square right here, and I'll rasterize it real quick. if I've got this square and I want another one, so let's say I'm going to be making kind of a little step right here, I can hold Control J and it'll just duplicate my layer right now. So do that and that, and I can just Control J and I can just constantly duplicate each layer, and it makes it nice and simple to make multiple of one object. Let's say I want to do that. Very easy for me to do that because I can just duplicate it using Control J rather than right clicking on the layer, click duplicating layer, and just keep doing that over and over again if you have a lot of objects that you're copying and pasting. Next shortcut is the rulers. Photoshop CC has automatic rulers, so this one isn't as much of an issue. I don't even really use these a lot anymore. But if you're using CS6 or something like that, I'm not sure if the first release of CC has this, but if you buy Photoshop, then you should have these automatic updates. The ruler tool is something really helpful when you don't have these auto rulers. If I have a square, I'll just put it in the center for a good measure. If I hit Control R, now it's going to pull these rulers on this side, and we can see on our canvas, since I'm going by pixels, it's not like a good solid amount of inches on each side, but let's say I wanted to have ruler lines through the middle of each side of my canvas. If I just click with the move tool on the ruler on the side, it's going to pull out a little line, and it's going to move freely until you get somewhere around the middle and it'll snap. You can see that right here. I'm moving my cursor a little bit and it's still snapping. And I'll release the move tool and it's going to give me a nice blue line. Now these are lines that you can use as guides that aren't actually on the canvas. So obviously if I get a new layer and I'm painting, everything's going to be behind it. So they're not actually on your workspace, they're just on top of it. And you can easily hide and re-put these if you do Control H, and that'll just kind of hide them. So let's say I want this, and I want to make sure that all of these other squares get there. I'm using my rulers to judge my spacing here, and then I decide I want to see what it looks like without rulers. Just hit Control H, and it's an easy way to hide the rulers so you can see what you're working on a little clearer. So we've got the rulers, transform. Another thing which I haven't used in this tutorial yet is grouping layers. So if I have a square here, and let's say, I didn't mean to do that. If I have, duplicate it, and I've got all these things on my canvas, I've got 4 squares here, all on separate layers, but I want them kind of grouped because let's say this is, one object. All I'm going to do is select all of these, and I'll just do that by holding Shift, clicking the top layer, and then while I'm holding Shift, clicking the bottom layer, and that's just going to select them all. And I'll do Control G, and that's going to group the layers. So we got group 1. So now if this was, let's say I'm making an image or something, and this is a single part of the image that I want to stay kind of in a group, but they're separate pieces. This is a good way because then I can hide it or delete it or move it around however I would like to do it. One last little shortcut that I forgot to add in earlier is the color picker tool. If you're doing kind of a lot of brush work, or maybe you're doing 3D and you need to pick up a color so you can do a good light or something like that, this is going to be a good tool for you. So let's say I've got all these lines right here, and I want to make another line on top, but I want it to be that green, but I don't have that green selected anymore. So I've got my black and my white again. All I do is hold Alt with my brush tool out, and you'll see I get this little eyedropper tool. Now wherever I click, I can hold this. Wherever I click, it's going to pick up that exact pixel and pick up that color. So you can see I've got black, purple, green, and if I go into this pixel in between, it kind of turns into this like muddy green, purple, and then in between the purple and the black, it turns into a dark purple. So if you're holding Alt and you're clicking, you can just pick up whatever color you need again and do that. Let's say I want to make black on top of it. Just pick it up. Purple on top of that. Pick it up again. Green. Over and over again. And it just makes it very easy for picking up whatever color you need to work with. Maybe I have all of this green right here. and then, you know, I've got kind of a couple layers of some shading going on. I've got these 3 layers of shading. Let's say I want to pick up this middle layer because I don't think there's enough. I can just hold Alt even though I don't have it in my colors anymore, and I can just pick it up right again and use it. Very helpful tool. Use that all the time. That is about it for my shortcuts tutorial, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If I missed any kind of simple shortcuts, because I'm sure I missed some, Photoshop is really something that once you learn to use it, these shortcuts kind of become second nature, so I'm sure I forgot some of them. There are so many shortcuts that you can use in Photoshop to increase your workflow. So if I did forget any, just make sure to comment them down below so other people can see them. Also, I'd like to thank everyone for the response on the video that Jaden put out the other day, asking you guys kind of your opinion on some things about the Designs Academy. That was really cool. We got a lot of responses, been out for 2 days, and we've got almost 100 responses. So it's really helping us make Designs Academy better, so I just like thank you guys for participating in that. Also, if you guys have any tutorial suggestions, just like every week, leave them down below in the comments, and I will make sure to do them. Other than that, guys, it's been Nick from the Designs Academy. Peace.